Regular programming will not be seen at this time so that we may bring you the following presentation. 25 years ago, she stormed into New Orleans and left behind a path of disaster and ruin. Now, the News 8 weather team remembers the force called Betsy. Tonight's special report is brought to you in part by Zach's Famous Frozen Yogurt and by the Farm Bureau. Now, here's your host, Bob Breck.
Good evening, and thanks for joining us. This program is about the power of nature, about the danger of living near the coast. And that danger became all too real to the people of Louisiana 25 years ago when Hurricane Betsy plowed into our state with a force not seen since. Here in St. Bernard Parish, hundreds of people from neighborhoods like Carolyn Park came to this courthouse to escape a tidal surge that put their homes underwater. Now, aside from their homes, many people lost their lives. Betsy devastated this area, the coastal towns, parts of New Orleans like the Ninth Ward. She was a lady filled with surprises, surprises that became all too evident long before she darkened our door. Betsy was born in the Atlantic early in September 1965. As she crept across the ocean, she built up her arsenal of winds and rain, ravaging the Bahamas, then taking aim at the southeastern U.S. coast. But as people there prepared for her, Betsy tricked everyone, looping back towards the Gulf. With strength built up, she began her reign of terror, smashing into the Florida coast early Tuesday, September 8th.
Betsy is here. Gusts now topping 100 miles per hour. Tides 3 feet above normal in the greater Miami area. And escape routes will be cut off shortly.
The powerful winds, heavy rains, and tidal waves leveled parts of Miami, Key Largo, and other resort cities.
Unidentified female reported electric use of a fallen power line.
Before leaving Florida, Betsy killed many people, destroyed thousands of homes and businesses. Her tab, $140 million. Betsy was far from over when she left Florida. The killer storm went into the Gulf to rebuild her strength. With her winds gusting at more than 130 miles per hour, the Category 3 hurricane set sight on Louisiana. There was little doubt in the minds of many that we were to become Betsy's next victims.
Low-lying coastal areas should be evacuated early today, before escape routes are cut off by rising waters.
Thousands of people from the Delta area boarded up their homes and headed for places like New Orleans. It became apparent, however, they could run, but they couldn't hide. By 10 o'clock Thursday night, the outer walls of Betsy were doing a tap dance on the birthplace of jazz, ripping parts of the city to shreds. The people who tried to fight her will never forget her.
Hurricane Betsy was the most frightening experience that I have ever been through in my entire life. I've lived here all of my life. I've been through every hurricane that we've had. The tremendous devastation, the loss of life, the tremendous suffering that I saw in every nook and corner of this whole metropolitan area left the kind of impression that was just absolutely unbelievable.
At about midnight, it looked like the eye of Betsy would narrowly miss New Orleans, moving to the west instead. But the nightmare for some was just beginning.
Baton Rouge.
Baton Rouge.
They're flooding now at Jackson Barracks.
You're kidding.
A 16-foot wall of water, the largest tidal surge in Louisiana history, topped the levees, making homes, even buildings in St. Bernard, Plaquemines, and the Ninth Ward look like play toys in a bathtub.
We were woke up by knocks under the house, and I got up and went check. The zinc was running over, and I went woke my husband up. When he got up, he ran to the front door, and he opened the door, and the water just come pushing in the house. So he run and he put the mattresses on top of the bed, put the children up there. Then he took and bust the attic in the ceiling. He bust that open and used my cedar chest to put the children up there in the attic. And we stayed in the attic all night till the next morning. After it was over with, we found mud, all our furniture and everything destroyed, full of water. We just locked the house up and left. We couldn't take it. It was too hurting to see, you know, all your stuff, you know, Bob, floating around, and we didn't have, and I had 3 kids. And we didn't have anything.
The water kept getting higher and higher, and we knew we had to get out of here. And I'm 5 feet, and the water got up to here, and it's about 4 feet in the house. And so we decided that we would leave. We took the two babies, my husband one on his shoulder and I the other on my shoulder. And we left with, after we saw the amphibian trucks, we couldn't get their attention, so we decided to leave with the family across the street.
Dan Kelly was a New Orleans city councilman representing the 9th Ward when Betsy hit. He went back there with me to talk about the storm.
This whole area was flooded, and I particularly remember this house here. The water was over the gutter pipes, which was actually on top of the roof, and many other houses along here were the same way. The water was anywhere in this side of the city from 6 to 16 feet high.
Some say Mayor Vic Sciro and some city councilmen had an industrial canal levee blown up, sending water into the 9th Ward while saving the lakefront area. But Kelly says Mother Nature caused the surge of water to hit the 9th Ward, not politicians.
There were people who misled others to believe that Vic Sciro and I chopped the levees and things of that sort, which would be a federal offense, and I'd still be in jail today if that were true.
That didn't happen.
There was no levees broken. The hurricane moved up the intercoastal waterway at such a speed, it caused a vacuum and threw the water up over what levees that we did have.
Kelly says the council and the mayor did everything possible to help the 9th Ward. It was one of the first areas President Johnson visited when he came to Louisiana the day after Betsy's wrath. After Betsy, we had President Johnson come down this very street in a duck. Can you describe us what happened when the president arrived?
Well, this is Tennessee Street we're standing on now, and we came in an Army vehicle, as they call it, duck, down the street, approaching Clavin Avenue there, and all of a sudden came to a complete stop, and no one knew what happened, so they took a pole, and somebody said, I think we're on top of an automobile.
With people still living on the rooftops and nearly 500,000 people crowded into shelters in Metro New Orleans, President Johnson immediately declared Louisiana a disaster area and ordered federal aid. It helped, but many say nothing was going to replace a lifetime of work, of dreams achieved only to be destroyed by a lady named Betsy.
We lost everything, food, clothes, everything. We didn't have nothing.
By the time Betsy died, so too had at least 75 people in Louisiana. Besides that, Betsy had the dubious distinction of becoming the state's first billion-dollar-plus hurricane. The final bill for her destruction, $1.4 billion. Many churches were among the buildings bowled over by Hurricane Betsy. The Holy Redeemer Church was one. By the time Hurricane Betsy was through, a good part of the church was little more than a pile of bricks. I'm standing in front of the Christopher Inn on the edge of Washington Square. It's a home for senior citizens now that sits where the Holy Redeemer Church once was. Now, this home was the first built by Archbishop Hannon for the elderly. Ironically, it was Hurricane Betsy that brought the Archbishop to New Orleans. A young Philip Hannon was among the hundreds of people called to New Orleans to help rebuild the city and the people's spirits. He was working in Vatican City when a Monsignor told him about Betsy's path of destruction and his new path in life.
He came in and immediately said, well, the Holy See wishes you to be the Archbishop of New Orleans. He said there's been a hurricane there and they'd like you to get there quickly. I said, well, this is big news. I didn't expect this at all, and let me think a while about it. He said, you've had plenty of time to think about it. So he said, please sign. He said they wouldn't call on you if they didn't need you.
Archbishop Hannon wasted no time in reaching out, helping the people he had come to serve, but it was no easy task.
Right away, I began to visit the parishes, and it was very, very difficult to get to the parishes. I remember trying to get to St. Bernard Parish, by the way, and that was quite a trip because we started out by car. We ended up with a little boat because the road was covered over with trees, and we got into a boat and got as far down the bayou as we could. Then we found out that the bayou was blocked. To get off that and walk on shore for a while and then get into another boat to go on a little bit further. That's the way you did it.
The Archbishop says it took months, even years, to help people get back on their feet. It took much longer to rebuild the churches Betsy had turned to rubble. The Archbishop says while his reign in New Orleans was born of a tragedy, it grew out of love. As you've watched this program, you've probably asked yourself, why did so many people get stuck on the rooftops? Why didn't they leave their homes sooner? We'll look into the evacuation process then and now. And what does it feel like to get caught in hurricane-force winds? Meteorologist Howard Bernstein has found a unique way to show us just what the body's up against. We'll have those stories and more when we return.
It's not hard to believe
that no matter how you fix your favorite salad, your favorite fruit, or favorite vegetables, Del Champs quality makes them taste even better. What's so hard to believe is that you get Del Champs quality and variety at low discount prices too. So shop Del Champs. You can't beat the quality or the low prices.
You gotta shop it to believe it. Yeah, you gotta shop it to believe it. Del Champs, Del Champs. From the countryside to your hometown, we're Farm Bureau in America.
Louisiana is home to a lot of traditions, a very unique heritage, and the true spirit of Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau provides you a wide range of member services, including proven auto, home, and life insurance protection.
The spirit of Farm Bureau is Americans like you.
Call your parish Farm Bureau. Helping you is what we do best.
When hurricanes threaten our coast, only a trusted meteorologist can predict their path. A meteorologist like Bob Breck. And with his coordinates, you can chart the path of nature's most powerful storms. Bob Breck's Hurricane Tracking Map from Channel 8 and Zax is your guide to staying prepared this hurricane season. Pick up your map at participating Zax Famous Frozen Yogurt locations.
I remember being in my family's home, even though I didn't live there anymore, because as in New Orleans, you have to go by your mama's when the hurricane hits. So there I was in a house with all these old people, and I was the only one that could swim. And I had this horrible image of myself with all these people strapped to my back, trying to pull them down the street, because I just knew the river was going to come caving in. We were right by the levee.
Better levees like this one would have made a big difference when Betsy struck a quarter century ago. Truth is, our levee system wasn't that great back then. Many levees only 3 to 4 feet high, and that's one reason why flooding was so bad in so many areas. Now, because of Betsy, Congress took immediate action. Within just 1 month, they approved federal funding to build new levees. Now, most levees are 12 to 18 feet high. And aside from the levees, leaders in Orleans and Jefferson wasted little time in building bigger and better pumping stations. Now that's a big comfort for us all today. But let me tell you folks, if that Category 4 or 5 hurricane ever comes, with its 20-foot surge of water, nothing will stop the flooding. The question then becomes, how do we get the people to go? Meteorologist Ken Oakwood looks at evacuation then and now.
Early in the evening of September 9th, 1965, it became apparent to New Orleans Mayor Vic Schiro that he needed to evacuate parts of New Orleans. But that was easier said than done.
What of our preparations in this area? Now, I would suggest this, that we evacuate these people from this parish line to the Wrigley's and from the lakefront to Florida Avenue. We've got approximately 150,000 people in here, you know that. Just about 150,000.
As Betsy approached, hundreds of thousands of people crowded into shelters in the New Orleans area. But the mayor never did try and get the people out of the city altogether. There really wasn't a plan for that. Looking back now, many people who got stuck in Betsy say they learned a lesson of their own.
I'll tell you what Hurricane Betsy meant to me. I never want to be in it no more. No more, nothing like it. And now I learned where I'll get out faster. I'll get out the house faster now.
I don't think we thought of evacuating, but after that, we thought very, very seriously, and we did evacuate for any hurricane that came after Betsy.
Not everyone has learned that lesson. 20 years after Betsy, Hurricane Juan hit, and hundreds of people in Louisiana still had to be rescued from their flooded neighborhoods. Most said they thought they could sit out the storm. Last year, governments in 9 parishes, including New Orleans, completed an extensive study. It includes several evacuation plans based on scenarios for every possible problem that could arise when a hurricane strikes.
I feel that we're in better shape than we've ever been.
We, like I said, did that study. We have a great emergency preparedness office. We have plans. We have people who understand what they're supposed to do. We've gone through practices. So I feel, you know, as much as you can prepare for anything, we're prepared.
Anyone who's lived in New Orleans long enough should know that preparation is crucial when a hurricane threatens. Being prepared is the backbone of the new emergency plan.
You need to, first of all, take care of your provisions. You know, we have advised people to go to the store and buy their flashlights, get their batteries, buy canned goods, buy water, in order to have those things on hand, to be prepared so that you can simply pick up and leave. The other thing, when we would make an announcement, we would encourage people to secure their property in the event that they had to leave it, rather than waiting for an order to evacuate to begin securing your property. Again, my approach is as they say, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
They had no water, no electricity.
The New Orleans Police Department has come up with its own unique way of preparing people for a hurricane. At this meeting at the Lafitte Housing Projects, Lieutenant Anthony Canatella is giving a crash course on hurricane preparedness. Canatella actually heads the Neighborhood Watch program, but he says people were losing interest. So he invited meteorologists to help teach them about hurricane readiness. It's worked. To make his point, Canatella uses video from Charleston, South Carolina, which was devastated by Hurricane Hugo last year at this time.
Some of the film we're showing them and what we're telling them, they're now seeing, whereas 25 years ago, nobody was training anybody or teaching anybody anything. It was just take my word for it and leave. And now we're showing them, look, Charleston was told to leave, they left, and they only lost 9 people. If we get a Hugo or a Gilbert or a Betsy or a Camille and you don't leave, we're going to lose a lot more.
Persuading people to evacuate is no easy task. No one wants to desert their homes hours before a hurricane may hit. But programs and seminars like this one let people know the importance of evacuating when the mayor says it's time to go.
Mayor Valance has ordered a mandatory evacuation of Grand Isle and has asked all residents of Grand Isle to please leave.
Grand Isle was leveled by Hurricane Betsy. It's partially because of this that during the past 25 years, when their mayor has said to go, most of the people have listened. Mayor Bartholomew is hoping that if he ever has to make that call, the people of the Crescent City will heed the warning.
I would prefer people to be upset because they've been inconvenienced a little than to be upset because they've lost members of their family.
If you were anywhere near New Orleans when Hurricane Betsy arrived, you know words can't describe just how strong the winds felt. They were gusting to above 125 miles an hour here at the lakefront. We've shown you pictures of just how powerful a punch Hurricane Betsy packed. But what do hurricane-force winds really feel like? Well, we sent meteorologist Howard Bernstein to Eglin Air Force Base to find out.
The winds that drive a hurricane. We all gain a new respect for Mother Nature when she gives birth to such a deadly force. And that's exactly what she did when she propelled more than 100-mile-per-hour winds into the Louisiana coast. Anyone living here at the time of Betsy knows that all too well.
The winds hit this area at approximately 100 miles an hour. I don't think anybody can really understand what a 100-mile-an-hour wind is unless you get into it. It physically moves you from one place to another.
We've all seen the video of hurricane-force winds hurling things into the air as though they're as light as feathers. But what do the winds really feel like? I'm at the Climate Lab at Eglin Air Force Base to find out what hurricane-force winds feel like. I've never been in a hurricane. In fact, when Betsy hit, I wasn't even born. Well, this big fan behind me is something the Air Force uses to test weather equipment and to do other weather experiments. They've agreed to let us use it to show you what the winds feel like as they increase from tropical depression strength up to hurricane force. All it takes is a flip of the switch to put me right in the middle of the kind of winds we fear so much when a hurricane strikes. The winds right now are blowing about 30 miles an hour. Now that's a pretty good tropical depression. Not a tropical storm yet, but the winds really aren't that bad. I wouldn't want to be out sailing in this, but I don't think anything is going to get damaged by that. We're now going to increase the wind up to about 50 miles an hour. That's a tropical storm. And I tell you, at this point, I'm having a little problem. I'm standing straight.
I'm looking into it, and it's starting to get a little rough. You can probably see my clothes ruffling, but still, I mean, a little damage will be done, but totally not unbearable. Now, at hurricane force strength now, I'm really, you notice I'm leaning forward. This is hitting me with quite a blast. I can barely take much more of it. I'm finding it also difficult to breathe. This is not something you want to be in. And at this point, we're going to throw it down. We're going to turn it down now.
You just saw what winds of 80 miles an hour did to me. But this was a controlled situation. We were able to turn the winds off. But just imagine winds of 125 miles an hour in an uncontrolled situation. That's what the winds were blowing when Betsy slammed into Louisiana. And on top of those high winds, you had debris flying at you in the form of rooftops, billboards, street signs, and anything else that wasn't secure that could be picked up by those violent winds. Not a situation you want to find yourself in. In Port Walton Beach, Florida, I'm Howard Bernstein.
We've told you about all the changes the city has made in the past 25 years since Hurricane Betsy. Now, during that time, the technology that we meteorologists use to give you the very latest information has also grown by leaps and bounds. We'll tell you more about that in just a moment.
This week at Schweikman, get U.S. government-inspected fresh lean pork loins, whole or rib half, $1.39 a pound. Jumbo shrimp, 16 to 20 count, 5-pound bags, $2.99 a pound. Fancy extra-large cantaloupe, 79 cents each. And USDA choice boneless beef chuck roast, $1.79 a pound.
Everything checks out better. Check out Schweikman. Check out Schweikman now. From the countryside to your hometown, we're Farm Bureau in America.
Louisiana is home to a lot of traditions, a very unique heritage, and the true spirit of Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau provides you a wide range of member services, including proven auto, home, and life insurance protection.
The spirit of Farm Bureau is Americans like you.
Call your parish Farm Bureau. Helping you is what we do best.
When hurricanes threaten our coast, only a trusted meteorologist can predict their path. A meteorologist like Bob Breck. And with his coordinates, you can chart the path of nature's most powerful storms. Bob Breck's Hurricane Tracking Map from Channel 8 and Zax is your guide to staying prepared this hurricane season. Pick up your map at participating Zax Famous Frozen Yogurt locations.
We were all sitting around that night, and the house shook so hard. In the middle of the night, I wanted to go out and hold on to this tree while the eye passed over. The next day, I went out, the tree wasn't there.
Like just about everything else, weather technology has vastly improved over the past 2.5 decades. When Hurricane Betsy slammed into our state, weather forecasters had little more to work with than a few scratchy satellite pictures and reports from storm trackers. But all that has changed. Our ability to track storms has improved dramatically since 1965. Now, those of you watching TV for updates back then probably saw a forecaster standing in front of a board like this, tracking the storm with a grease pencil. But computer graphics like this have made it a whole new ballgame. Back in the 60s, satellite pictures were very limited. We were lucky if we got 2 a day. They looked like this, and they were on paper. Nowadays, we get 2 every 30 minutes. And by use of the computer, we can colorize them and loop it and put it into motion. And I believe by this motion, you get a better feel, a better understanding of the power of a hurricane. It was last year at almost this very time, most of you were watching as Hurricane Hugo took aim for the South Carolina coast. Pictures like these left little doubt that Hugo was awesome and that the people of Charleston were in trouble. Now, a lot of information about Hugo and other storms is gathered from inside the eye of the hurricane. It's hard to believe, but hurricane hunters fly directly into the storm. Now, that hasn't changed since Betsy, but like everything else, it's improved. Hurricane hunters can be compared to the Indian scouts of the Old West. They have the dangerous job of going ahead of the pack to find out everything possible about the enemy. While the hurricane hunters did fly into the eye of Betsy back in 1965, they didn't have half the high-tech equipment they have today. This is just one of the airplanes we now use to track storms. It's packed with everything from sophisticated radars to state-of-the-art computers and satellite equipment. That equipment helps answer critical questions from the worst part of the storm.
The usual pattern prefers to go into the rougher, the stronger sectors. They want to know where the strongest winds are, what are the highest winds that are going to affect people on land. So that's where they want the airplane to go.
The hurricane hunters are well trained, but still the flights can be terrifying, and sometimes something may go wrong.
Hugo was a much stronger storm than we had been led to believe by the people that make approximations from the satellite. And the airplane was heavy. We were going in at 1,500 feet, hit severe turbulence and lost an engine at the perfectly worst moment possible. The airplane went from 1,500 to 800 feet in sort of a wing-down configuration. Finally recovered, found themselves in a 6-mile-across eye, and took an hour to slowly spiral climb from 800 to 8,000 feet before being able to make a safe way out.
The hurricane hunters do take risks, but the crucial information they help gather helps save lives. Now, the hurricane hunter's job may be exciting, but I'd still rather track the storm from in here than from up there. We'll have more about Hurricane Betsy when we return.
From the countryside to your hometown, we're Farm Bureau in America.
Louisiana is home to a lot of traditions, a very unique heritage, and the true spirit of Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau provides you a wide range of member services, including proven auto, home, and life insurance protection.
The spirit of Farm Bureau is Americans like.
Call your parish Farm Bureau. Helping you is what we do best.
When hurricanes threaten our coast, only a trusted meteorologist can predict their path. A meteorologist like Bob Breck. And with his coordinates, you can chart the path of nature's most powerful storms. Bob Breck's Hurricane Tracking Map from Channel 8 and Zax is your guide to staying prepared this hurricane season. Pick up your map at participating Zax famous frozen yogurt locations.
Riley's double cheese, double beef cheeseburger, 2 plus 2. 2 plus 2, you know that's hard to beat. It's double cheese and it's double the beef. Walk on up or just drive through for that big cheeseburger called 2 plus 2. Beef, beef. Riley's 2 plus 2, cheap, cheap. Something new for you. Riley's double cheese, double beef cheeseburger, 2 plus 2. Beef, beef for the best. Beef, beef.
There will never be another Hurricane Betsy. That name has been retired. But as we've shown you this evening, we've learned a lot in the past 25 years. The improved technology, higher levees, and extensive emergency plans will help us to better deal with a Category 3 hurricane. But the fact remains, New Orleans sits below sea level, and we're surrounded by water. If Mother Nature ever decides to send a Category 4 or 5 hurricane our way, preparation and evacuation may be all that saves us. Hopefully, that's a lesson we've learned well in the past quarter century. For all of us at News 8, I'm Bob Breck. Good night.